For sellers, handling a multiple offer situation on your home can be a little bit more difficult than you think. I was helping a client of mine who had already bought their next home, and they're putting their property on the market, and that's exactly what happened to them. They got multiple offers and then were in a little bit of a stressful situation deciding what to do next. Hi, I'm Dimitrios. I'm a realtor and I help people sell homes. So in their situation, they were eager to make the move happen quickly. So usually we like to list homes on a Thursday, which allows you to kind of wait the weekend, get maximum interest. We'd put the home on the market on Sunday with kind of a long runway for coming soon, so people would know about it. And then it's kind of a hot market, and we had priced it on the higher end of what nice properties were selling for. So we priced it at, it was $530. So we came in, we had 3 offers on the property in 24 hours. Well, actually we had two offers on it immediately within the 24 hours. And they both escalated to $550, and they had similar terms. So it was a little bit, what do? We were trying to differentiate between these 2 offers. She said, hey, we just put it on the market. Let's ask for highest and best, and we'll wait another 24 hours and see what comes. Now, when you're asking for highest and best, 90% of the time, that is the right way to go. But sometimes you tick someone off and they leave, and then you're left with, one offer or, hopefully one offer. But usually it works out, and that's what happened in this case. So we had those 2 offers stayed, and then we had a 3rd offer come in. So the first offer had escalated up to $550, and they were very strong on terms. So they were putting 30% down. They were doing an appraisal gap coverage, and they were putting a large earnest money deposit down, and they were basically saying their home inspection was for informational purposes only. The second offer that had originally escalated to $550, it's funny how these things work, but they escalated $2,000 more, so they escalated to $552. They were also well qualified buyer, but not quite as strong terms as the first buyer. And then the last offer, strong offer, but they came in at $545, and nothing else stood out about them, so they were not really in the running. So if you kind of put yourself in the mind of the seller, it's a good situation, but what do you choose? So if you're a buyer, making an offer, it usually always comes down to price. So you can try and push your terms and say, hey, I'm going to buy this informational purposes only inspection, put more money down. But at the end of the day, you're a seller, you're saying, okay, do I think I'm going to have an appraisal issue? We did not. So the appraisal gap coverage wasn't a big concern for us. Second, they were both talking about doing home inspections, but having it essentially be as is, but they weren't willing to waive the home inspection. So how that works is it's just kind of all talk, because something happens at the home inspection, they still have a right to ask, and you don't want them to walk away at that point. You've already said no to the other buyers, so you're likely to work out a deal. So unless it's truly as is without an inspection, you just got to treat those, fairly equally. They both were well qualified. The one had, a large down payment, but the other one, it was more a benefit for their lender. They had gotten them essentially pre-underwritten. So they were good to go. The other one had more of a pre-qualification, which is just how that lender sets it up. They're a big, well-known bank, but they just don't go through the pre-approval process. They just do a pre-qualification, which means they're not verifying your assets or your income or anything. They're just taking it at face value, and then they're looking at it in more detail after they get an accepted contract and you pay them an application fee. And the other thing was the offer that escalated to $552, the agent also had lowered their commission by 0.5%. So if you do the math, this came to about almost a $5,000 difference between the 2 offers. So although the seller was originally leaning to the buyer that has putting down, a little bit more money, more EMD, verbally at least a little stronger on what they were saying regarding the home inspection, the higher price won out, and that is often what happens in those types of situations. And it turned out to be the right choice. The no issue with the home with the appraisal. Yep, there were a couple things that came up on the home inspection, but it was less than the $5K to get figured out, and it's a smooth closing process that's happening. So if you're structuring your offer and you're deciding what to do, you gotta keep in mind, if you love this property, someone else might love it, and you gotta be strong terms, but you really gotta put the price front and center to beat out the other offers.